The hike was long, nearly 6 miles. The first 5 were easier enough, but the last mile was a series of constant switchbacks on a steep slope that left me gasping for air with each step. We were exhausted and drenched in sweat, but in good spirits when we finally arrived at the top of the ridge shortly before sunset. My friends seemed eager to explore the nearby landscape, and I shared their enthusiasm. For what we had heard, the view here was stunning. It was our annual summer camping trick, a rigid tradition that had endured since our childhood. My family and the families of my 3 best friends, who also happened to be my neighbors, spent a week in this park every summer. It was a serene environment that allowed one to shed their stress, their worries, and all the trouble of the previous year. Here, next to the sprawling forest of pines and under the shadow of the Appalachian Mountains, we came to forget the problems of life and simply enjoyed ourselves. I had many fond memories of this place that spanned throughout my childhood. Fishing and swimming in lakes, marshmallows, and ghost stories over the campfire, hiking along the many trails that covered the park. I look forward to this trip each and every year. However, this year was slightly different. Our families had stayed at the usual campgrounds while Tony, Esther, Margaret, and I hiked onward toward a different area. For many years, we had been told there was a campground on top of a ridge that offered an absolutely incredible view of the valley below. On more than a few occasions, my friends and I had begged our parents to take us up there, but we could never convince them to make the long hike. For our younger siblings, 6 miles was simply too far to walk. At least that was the excuse they used. Nevertheless, we had collectively convinced our parents to allow us to make the hike alone this year. They had agreed that we were definitely old enough to camp out on our own, and wished us well on our journey. Here we are, 5 hours later, on top of the heavily forested ridge and excited to pitch our tents. As soon as we would reach the top of the ridge, the dirt path leveled off. There are pine trees on either side of the path that cast long shadows in the evening suns. About 100 yards ahead, the other edge of the ridge could be seen, and we picked up our pace in the anticipation of the view. I noticed that there was a small building at the edge of the path that was built very close to the cliff. It looked like a house, and I curiously wondered who would be living up in there. Turning my mind back towards the reason we were here, I hurried past the house with my friends and arrived at the opposite end of the ridge. The view was everything we had anticipated. The setting sun illuminated the valley below us. The August grass shone gold and waved with the light and breeze that swept through the valley. A few wisps of clouds gently floated through the sky and were illuminated red by the dying beams of sunlight. I heard Esther and Margaret gasp in awe as they admired the landscape. Tony and I stood in silent appreciation, taking in the beauty. We must have stood there for close to 10 minutes as the sun sank lower towards the horizon. We were so hypnotized that we failed to notice the man behind us. As soon as I turned around and saw him, an old man, he looked perhaps 70, and he sat in a chair smoking a cigarette on the porch of the building I had seen earlier. He was looking at us with an amused expression on his face, and as he puffed away, feeling a little embarrassed that all 4 of us just had walked past him without so much as saying good evening, I decided to approach him and introduce myself. His eyes locked on me as I walked up to his front porch. "Good evening," I said in a friendly tone. "Damn right it is," the old man immediately responded, taking another drag on his cigarette. I was a little startled by his forwardness, but I smiled and introduced myself. My name's Chris Harding, I said as I extended a hand to him. The old man pulled a tobacco-stained hand right out of his right pocket and gave me a good firm handshake. Walter McNeil, he said with a smile. And these are my friends, Astor, Tony, and Margaret, I said, pointing to each of them. Sorry for not noticing you earlier. Walter waved his hand in a dismissive manner. It's right. That view is a lot prettier than me, he chuckled. My friends and I chuckled along with him. I liked his sense of humor. We've never been up here before, and we didn't know anybody had a house up here. What makes you live here? I asked. Walter held out his hand, palm upwards, pointing toward the scenery behind us. His eyebrows were raised in amusement. I immediately felt incredibly stupid for asking this question. Oh yeah, that's some view, isn't it? I said. It is, ain't it? Best time of the whole damn year, actually. You wouldn't want to be here in January. Winters are something fierce, he stated. Do you live here alone? Hey, just me. Been here my whole life, and I don't ever plan on moving. So you grew up around here? Sure did. Used to be a little town down in the valley. That's where I was born and raised. What happened to it? I inquired. The town? Why isn't it here anymore? Well, nothing happened to it, as much as it withered away. All the young folk of my time moved on. Didn't want to live their lives in a tiny town in the middle of nowhere, Walter said with a touch of sadness in his voice. But not you. You didn't want to go anywhere. Nah, not me. Perfectly happy to be here, till I'm dead. Walter said nothing further, and I seemed to go into deep thought. We stood around, walking awkwardly for close to a minute before we finally decided to say goodbye and head to the camping area. We were tired from our hike and needed to pitch out our tents and sleep. Excuse me, I said, waking Walter from his silent contemplations. How do we get to the campgrounds from here? Huh? Campgrounds? Oh, just follow that trail there for about half mile. It goes along a ridge, and it'll lead you straight to a clearing where you can set up camp. You'll have the place all to yourselves. Hardly anybody comes up here anymore. Walter pointed to the right of his house, and our eyes followed his fingers. There was a thin dirt patch leading into the trees. Okay, thanks for your help, Mr. McNeil, I said. We waved goodbye to him and started to turn towards the trail. Just as my head turned away from the house, something caught my eye. It was another trail, even thinner, that led into the trees on the left side of the house. Where does that trail lead? I asked, nodding my head towards the other path. Walter glanced over towards it, and a smile crept onto his lip. He took a drag on a cigarette and responded, Oh, that trail? It leads to the stairway. The what? The stairway. That's what everybody calls it. I don't think it has a proper name. What's the stairway? I inquired, genuinely curious. It's the damn strangest thing I've ever saw. Just a set of stairs carved out of a rock. Goes right out of the hill. Been there just about forever. What? I said incredulously. A stairway made out of rock? Right over the cliff? Hey, exactly that. You gotta go see it to believe it. But it's there. Who built it? Why would anyone want to build something like that? Well, about 10 years ago, these archaeologists came here to look at it. They got a load of fancy old tools and such. One of them tells me that it's nearly 900 years old, if you can believe it. So I guess Indians must have built it. There sure as hell wasn't anybody else here that 900 years ago. I see. Why did the Native Americans build it? I asked. Ain't nobody got a clue. Hell, those archaeologists couldn't even tell how they built it. Said it looked like the staircase was carved straight out of the rock. But the way it sticks over the side of the ridge, there couldn't have been any mountain to carve it out. In fact, it's a damned miracle it hasn't fallen over. Shouldn't even be standing. With how it is, Walter explained. At least that's what the archaeologists say. The way he emphasized the word archaeologist made it clear that Walter was not telling the full story. It was merely waiting for us to ask him to elaborate. I decided to humor him. After all, he clearly didn't get many visitors. What do other people say? Walter's face lit up in honesty and excitement as he given the opportunity to tell a story. His cigarette was nearly gone, and he threw the butt on the ground and pulled a new one from his pocket. As he lit it with a match, he looked at us and said, "You kid like ghost stories?" "Sure, we love ghost stories," Aster explained. The rest of us nodded in agreement. Many ghost stories had been swapped between our families over a campfire, and a fresh one was always welcome. "Well, pull up your pants and get ready, 'cause I got a hell of a story for you," Walter said as he puffed his new cigarette. "So there's this god, you see. It rules over the land, and is this a Native American legend?" Margaret cut him off. "To tell you the truth, I don't know. Very well could be, but I don't get a clue where it came from. This is just a story I heard as a boy. Jimmy Dwight's granddad used to tell it to me when he was drunk as hell and couldn't keep his old mouth shut." Walter laughed hard, and his laughter turned into a wheeze, which turned into a coughing fit that lasted several minutes. When he had finally composed himself, he continued with the story. "So anyways, there's a god that rules over this land, and he's got the spirits under his command. And these spirits, they got a job. When somebody is close to death, when their time has come, so to speak, these spirits go to the dying man, and they help him along. They take him and show him the way to the next life. So they're good spirits, you see. They help people go peacefully." Walter ruminated for a minute. It looked as if he was trouble remembering the story. "So, anyways, what was I saying? Oh, yeah. There's the good spirits that take dying people away. Except one of those spirits was actually no good. He didn't do his job right. He liked it when people died. You see, there was something about it. Something about death he liked. He liked it when... So he starts taking people when it ain't their time. Healthy people. Young people. People that ain't no business dying. And this bad spirit, he's killing them just for the sake of killing. Ain't that awful?" "Yeah, that sounds really bad," Tony agreed. "This mean spirit, he goes around killing people for no good reason. And the killing seems to give him power, makes him stronger, so the god figures that he can't go on any longer. So he banishes him. The bad spirit gets thrown out of God's realm. Heaven, you could call it. He lands on his butt right in this area. And most of his powers has gone too, but not all. So the evil spirit is here, roaming around. Is that it?" Aster asked. "You're ahead of me, young lady," Walter responded. "As I said, most of the bad spirit's power is gone. But not all. He's still got some juice left. And like I said, killing makes him stronger, so he keeps on killing. Except he doesn't bother with no individuals no more. That ain't no fun. He likes groups of people. Groups he can play with. He taunts them, like a cat taunts a mouse before killing it. And the more the people suffer before they die, the more power he gets. And what does he use his power for, you ask? Well, he uses it to build a damn stairway. Every time he does some poor group of old people in, he heads over to the stairway and uses the power to add an extra step to it. In fact, it's his power that keeps the stairway from falling over. He's been building that stairway for close to 1,000 years. He's a patient little bastard. He's building it upwards so that one day he can get back to heaven and have his revenge. Walter laughed hard again, but thankfully his laughter did not degenerate into another coughing fit. How's that stairway for a heaven? I chuckled at the reference to the song, but I was also impressed by Walter's story. It certainly was a rather creepy tale. It seemed perfectly tailored to scare them. An evil spirit roaming these lands, only preying on groups of people such as themselves? Excellent ghost story. And how many steps are on the stairway now? How many groups have come up here and met with a terrible fate? Asked with an amused tone. There's Walter trade off. Well, I'll be damned. I haven't forgot. Went on, that's you when I was young and counted the steps. So long ago, I can't remember at all how many steps there are. Of course, you're free to go and find out. Walter's core offer piqued my interest, and I found that it also interested my friends. He told us that the trail leading to the stairway is only a few hundred yards long, and that we would still have time to see it before the sunset. It didn't take much convincing us to get us on the path to see the legendary set of stairs. My mouth hung open in shock. It was exactly as Walter had described it. Even so, I was still completely blown away by what I saw. A large staircase, made entirely of gray rock, jutting out over the edge of the ridge. And it was steep, and had no support as far as I could tell. It looked as if it should fall over at any second. I could tell my friends that they were amazed as I was. I had never saw anything like it in my life. Walter and I understand when he called it the damn strangest thing he ever saw. We silently stared at the stone monstrosity for a long time. The sun was starting to touch the horizon when Tony spoke. How many? How many what? I responded. How many steps are there? Count them. I'm sure as hell I'm not walking on that damn thing. All four of us began counting the stone steps in our head as the remaining rays of sunlight illuminated the stairway. I lost count once and I had to start over. 39, Margaret declared. Tony and Astor agreed with her count. At least the last one had to finish my tally of the stairs, and I arrived at the same conclusion. 39, I agreed. 39 groups of people, killed by the evil spirit that haunts these lands, Tony said in an overdone, spooky voice. We laughed. Astor mentioned that we should tell our parents about this place as soon as the week was over. We had a great ghost story to share. The sun finally dipped below the horizon and left behind only a bloody red sky. We decided to head back towards Walter's house and take the path to the campground, promising ourselves that we'd come back to see what the stairway at least once before the week was over. The walk to the campground was fairly uneventful. We saw Walter again as he passed by his house, and told him that there were 39 steps on the stairway. He mumbled something along the lines of sounds about right, before bidding us goodnight and heading into his house. It took less than 15 minutes to walk the half mile to the camping area. In the fading twilight, we chatted and did our best to spook each other with dreadful stories of the evil spirit that lurked in these woods. About halfway through the walk, Tony had spotted the dirty skeleton of a squirrel laying just off the path.